do? They had to strengthen their immune system to protect the arm that was actually being exposed to the poison ivy, and they had to weaken and elicit a response. This is the start of the studies of psychoneuroimmunology. Go on, say it with me. Wow! That's so cool. So these kids have the ability to think themselves healthy in the arm that's exposed to poison ivy. Now, how do they do that? Well, first off, epigenetic control. This is the future of healthcare. This is how, if you're involved in the system now, you're getting out of it. You have no choice. It's not going to be here. We're not going to diagnose a disease and take a drug. Okay, it doesn't work that way. In the old days, they used to think, and everybody's seen this double helix, this is DNA. For 50 years, they've been studying the DNA, the structure of it, the chemical makeup of it. And there's two contents of the nucleus, DNA and protein. They've been throwing away the protein, just studying the DNA. Now we found out that this DNA is actually uncovered by a protein sheath. And DNA is the blueprint of the body. So if you have a sickness or a health condition that you've been exposed to, like let's say you've been exposed to the bubonic plague and you happen to be Northern Europe, and some ancestor way back when, 400 or 500 years ago, developed the genetic sequence to solve that disease. What happens when you're exposed to that disease, that sequence is uncoded, and then your body produces a protein so you're protected. This is called genetic immunity. This is called immunity that you've been given by your parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents. Okay? This is the blueprint. What causes that body to be encoded, or that section of DNA to be encoded, is your perception of the environment. So the protein covering of the DNA is the most important. So let me put it this way. Have you heard that cancer is genetic? Yeah. Okay, it's not. Okay, 100 years ago it affected 3% of the population, now it's affecting over 50%. So you can't have genes change in 100 years. So if a parent has cancer, the kids have cancer, the grandparents had cancer, okay, genes, which is what this is, it doesn't turn themselves on or off. DNA doesn't turn itself on or off. Blue eyes aren't going to turn brown, brown eyes aren't going to turn blue. Okay, that's genetic. Expression of the genes is what's in your control. What that means is, if your parents and grandparents have the gene that predisposes you to cancer, when you're exposed to toxins, either toxic thought or toxic environment, you don't personally need to express that gene. So you can protect yourself from cancer. Okay? Do you want to learn how? Okay, would that be valuable? Yes. Good. First off, this fellow died about 40 years ago, French embryologist. The living being is the creator of his own evolution. That means that you can actually control the parts of your DNA expressed. The leading edge scientists have examined in great detail the processes by which cells receive information. This research radically changed our understanding of life. It shows that genes and DNA do not control our biology. Instead, DNA is controlled by the signals from outside the cell, including energetic messages emanating from our own positive and negative thoughts. Dr. Bruce Lipton. What that means is, we used to think we were a slave to DNA. Oh, your parents had flat feet? Sorry, you're going to have flat feet too. No, that's not true. You can exercise the feet and change it. Okay, your parents had XYZ disease, high blood pressure. Okay, that means you're going to have it. No, that's not true. Okay, all of those are lies, and that's part of our medical system. What that means is you have cell receptor sites outside of this cell. That cell can choose to express disease or express health. You have the choice. Okay, it's in your control. Now, first off, biology perception. They used to think that for all the bodily processes that you have in the Human Genome Project, that you would have about 120,000 genes. What they found was that you had around 35,000. Slightly more than a fruit fly. Yes, you have slightly more genes than a fruit fly. But they used to think that in order to have a human body that has its all interactions with the environment, with all the organ systems, you needed about 5 times the amount of genes that you have now. So how does that work? Well, first off, the genes you have work in a different encoding fashion. It's the protein sheath that explains how they're going to be encoded. Now, the biology perception. First off, your perception of your environment changes cell functions. Now, let's say, who likes going down roller coasters?
Not me.
Okay. Okay. Who doesn't?
Me.
Okay, good. So now let's say that you absolutely love it. Okay, you find a roller coaster the most joyous, wonderful, ecstatic, dynamic event ever. You go down a roller coaster and you come off of it enlivened. Your endorphins are depressed. Your immune system is super strong. Blood supply to the gut is elevated. You're producing appropriate cells. Everything's working great. Let's say you view that roller coaster ride with absolute abject terror. Okay? Endorphins are produced huge. Enkephalins are produced. Blood supply to the gut is shut down. Your immune system is weakened. So same event, different perception. So it's not the event, it's the perception of that event. So your perception of the environment changes cell receptors. So if you're viewing your environment, those cell receptor sites on the outside of the cell change. They change to accept the new perception of what you view. Now, if you change the cell function, you change cell expression. This means the DNA that you're going to express under a fearful event is radically different than the DNA you're going to produce under a happy, joyous event. You change cell expression, you change your health. So what this means is this cell produces proteins. If this cell expresses that cancer gene, you're going to get cancer. If this cell expresses health and beautiful skin gene, you're going to have beautiful skin and health for your entire life. Okay, so it's not the genes, it's how they're expressed. That equates health. Now, your environment, or your perception of the environment, changes the perception, or changes the actual cell receptor sites, and this changes how proteins are produced. Now, we're getting into cell biology, microbiology, physiology. It's a lot. But if you understand that your perception of the environment, your view of that roller coaster ride, is going to change the receptor sites and change the proteins produced. If you're in a high nutrient environment, this is going to produce insulin. Okay, if you're in a fearful environment, this is going to produce endorphins, catecholamines. Okay, so it depends on what your perception of the environment, on what kind of cells this is going to produce. Now, is water important? More important than you know. Okay, so not only is your body about 70% water, you already know now that your perception of the environment can change cell protein production. So you can think yourself well or think yourself sick. Okay, you have the ability to do that. Did you know that 70% of your body is water, and water can transmit information? A doctor for about 20 years has been working with water. Now, he did something unusual. He took water from two different sources. These are both from the Tijuana Dam, and what he did is he put it in a jar, put this one in a jar. Okay, had them in separate locations, had one of the jars prayed over. Okay, and then formed crystals. And he had 100 crystal pictures taken, random, and 100 people reviewed the crystals, and they put them in two different piles. And their accuracy was around 95%. That means that 95% of the people in the pictures were put from the original water, and this was put in the after prayer water. Can you see a difference there? Yeah, huge. It's like not even close. And this isn't one test. He put several jars, the chi of love, I hate you, you're disgusting. He put all of these different thoughts on these jars of water, and they all produced different crystal formation. Then they did a study, so thought can change water. How far does thought go? They did an experiment. They had a group of people in Japan focus positive intentions on a jar of water in San Jose. And what they didn't know was that there was a control jar of water in San Diego. Okay, and then they went back, and they went back in the same type, similar crystal formation. So your positive intentions aren't just for yourself. They can affect those around you as well. And they can actually affect, in the experiments that he's done, water 10,000 miles away. Go on, say it with me. Wow! So you got to wonder, if writing a thought on a jar of water can change crystal formation, what if you see someone with a tattoo that's not positive? Okay, does that negatively affect how their body is? Yeah, unless they view that tattoo